And hopefully our speaker will join us very soon. But welcome everyone, and thank you. There we go. Speak of the devil, is that Morgan?
Hi, Laurie. So it's me, Reese, at the moment.
Reese, okay,
just
fabulous.
a very quick last minute update. I really apologise. Morgan has actually gone home with COVID.
Oh God. Okay.
So we've had the dreaded COVID, the last minute sort of switcheroo.
No.
So I work within our health and safety and employment relations teams,
Cool.
and work with rights.
Awesome.
Morgan would definitely be our specialist. So I'm definitely able to kind of go over some of the things that we talk to with our clients on a day-to-day, and answer any questions as well.
Oh, amazing.
But I'll let you get started. Sorry about the
no problem at all. No, great to see you, and thanks.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you
for joining. Okay, well, as I say, welcome everyone for another Friday Connect and Share. Can you believe it's number 93? We're up to 93 episodes of these sessions to keep our industry well informed, well connected, and so we're on top of all the major challenges and opportunities that come our way. So let's get into it. And firstly, may I voluntarily acknowledge the traditional owners of which we all meet, the lands of which we meet today, pay my respects to Aboriginal people past, present and emerging leaders that will help us connect more with the outdoor spaces that they know so well, and that we can help to educate our participants and visitors through our experiences. Now, I've got a lot of news for you, and the first one I am very excited about is our very first ambassador for Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. And I welcome Kai Fano, who has joined us as an amazing role model in the outdoors. Just to give you a bit of a rundown on Kai. After a car accident when she was only 19 years old, she actually used rock climbing as her recovery tool. She then headed to Canada and trained in martial arts and weapons, falling into a career in the film industry. She has been a stunt double for people like Sharon Stone, Jennifer Garner, Anne Hathaway, Ellen DeGeneres, and Jessica Biel. She won the 2012 Best Female Stunt Performer. She returned to Australia and went back outdoors, guiding, leading and shooting documentaries, and not to mention writing books as well. So amazing role model for us to have as an advocate for the outdoors. She joins us to help spread the word about careers in the outdoors and advocating for the benefits of the activities we provide. You'll see her in various activities that we'll be conducting, but perhaps the most prominent opportunity you get to meet Kai will be at the National Outdoor Education Conference in September, where she'll be delivering the keynote address. So yeah, please join me in welcoming Kai aboard, and let's expand our awareness of what we do as an industry and what we can provide, not only careers in the outdoors, but also the opportunity to be healthy and more sustainable in our environment settings. So speaking of the National Outdoor Education Conference, we are about to go live with our tickets for this year, and as that logo says, it will go ahead. We've had 2 false starts on this one. We had the precursor last year, which was a great intro into some of the content that you'll see at this conference, but this will be outstanding. 3 magnificent days in the beautiful Blue Mountains, and we've got a few more sponsorship opportunities open. So if you've got a business that really wants to connect with the outdoor space, certainly let us know and we will connect you with this opportunity. But you can see there, it's quite a comprehensive agenda. There's a few more added things that are popped into the agenda. So please make sure you keep on top of that as the tickets go live on Saturday. So back to some important news for the industry, and you might have seen this in your members newsletter, but if you have the likes of chain tensioners in your environment, in your facilities, please be aware of this issue that was picked up in Queensland. It has some serious consequences if not addressed. There was an incident that could have been a potential fatality with this device. So we've just got to make sure that we seek professional engineers' advice if you actually have these tensioners and how you can actually address that issue. Dave, you got a question on that one?
Sorry. It's actually interesting because it's sold without the chain.
Oh, right. Okay, interesting.
But it just says there, sold without the chain, which means the first thing is that you could you acquiring a suitable rated chain is quite expensive and difficult. The other thing is that it just looking at it, it breaks most of our strength ratio rules, even for heavy metal things. By there's no angles in the attachment point, for instance.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's not something I would advise using anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So let's hope that most people don't have them. But if you do see them and you do have them in your facility, please, address it. And a really good point. Thanks, Dave. A reminder on this one, because I've had a few conversations with a few businesses along the lines of contracting staff. And I think this case law has really set some interesting thought processes in exactly what you need to consider when you are contracting staff versus employing staff. So you can go to our website, jump into the shop there, and certainly download the recording of this session. Very, very important information to know when it comes to this case law. This week, the Groundswell information sessions took place. So you might remember Take 3 was with us last Friday and just gave us a bit of an update from where we went with the First Wave project into Groundswell. What this basically means in black and white is the tourism operators can be involved in this program, and they are provided with really easy to use tools to engage in litter removal from their facilities. And it doesn't take too much time, but the beautiful thing is the organisations can be contributing to this issue, but also measure their contribution to this. And certainly, as we've said in previous editions, a lot of our participants these days are looking for that ethical connection to their purchase decisions, and our businesses can certainly connect with that and promote that as something that they are doing. If you are interested in being part of this, you don't need to be a tourism operator. You just need to be an operator that's in the outdoors. You can certainly reach out to Juliet on that and be part of this program. That's her email address there and her phone number. The mentoring programs are off and running. The first cohort next session is the 12th of May. So some really great discussions happening with that mentoring program. The second cohort will start in October, and we're about to kick off our first ACT one. So the last expressions of interest are open now. If you are keen to be involved in that, please let us know and we will get you involved. Members, please update your details. We've sort of been saying this again and again, but I just want to make sure that everyone has the right information at their disposal. And as we migrate into our new website additions and website structures, we want to make sure that you've got access to that, and we can only do that if we've got your right details. So please update your details when you can, because this is sort of something you're going to see. This is very exciting. So this is in draft at the moment. It gives you a bit of a flavour for what it's going to be, but every member will get their own page for promotion, or actually they'll get their own article for promotion, and there is no limit to how many articles you can have. If it's a special that you've got on offer, if it's a seasonal program, if it's one product versus another product, you can enter these as promotional tiles, which will appear on our website, and we'll be able to leverage that and use that in our social platforms as well. You can categorize yourself against each of the areas of the industry, and also all the different opportunities or facilities that you offer. And as you can see there, guests can come in and search via a particular facility or a particular sector of the industry. So great stuff. This will be coming out in the next couple of weeks for all members to be able to utilize and promote their wares. A reminder about our new Careers in the Outdoors content that's on our website. So if you haven't seen that and you're wanting to connect with people, whether they're out of school, whether they're out of TAFE, whether they're out of uni, whether they're out in the wide open space of the world, you can use these tools for your use as well. Lots of activities coming up. Again, I think we'll just say before, I feel like I'm not going to be at home much in the next couple of months, but this is great. We're starting to get back to our events and having the conversations that are needed to be happening. So very excited to be at all of these events as they're coming up in the next few months, and there for your information. And news from the Outdoor Council of Australia. We now have the AAAS open for feedback from the industry. So you can now jump onto the website, and if you've got any comments or things that you think need to be updated in regards to the AAAS, that platform is now open for all the industry to comment, as well as the slacklining and highlining good practice guide is now open for industry feedback. So the OCA are inviting everyone to comment to see if it is going to be of something that can be useful for the industry, and any additions or changes that need to be made before it's fully adopted. So great news there from the OCA. So that's it from me before my voice breaks. And I'm going to hand over to Reese, who's going to give us a really good insight into what we need to know about WHS and the structure around HR, because it's a continual issue, Reese, in our industry, where we're really struggling with getting our staff on board and catching up with where we need to be from a capacity sense. So as you said, Morgan's not here, but you are here, and I've spelt your name wrong, so sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. Most people do. So you probably hear by my accent that I'm from the UK. I'm Welsh. So thank you everyone for having me within this presentation. Very much appreciated. And what I'd love to do is go through, like Laurie mentioned, some of the obligations that I guess are quite important at the moment, and that our clients that we're bringing on board, and some of the conversations we're having are getting missed. And it's very, very difficult within the industry as well at the moment to get staff, to retain staff. There's sort of the Great Resignation, and sort of all of these things put a pressure on us as business owners, and it can be very difficult to know what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. From a HR perspective and from a health and safety. Now I do have a presentation, and I will see if I can just share that. It is a little bit longer in terms of, normally it'd be around an hour long. So hopefully you guys can see that. So what I will do, I may skip a few slides just to get us through that. Can everyone see that hello slide? Excellent. Okay, that was nice and smooth. Thumbs up as well. Thanks everyone. So what I'm going to do is just focus in on the health and safety, because a lot of our outdoors, sort of that high risk environment, that it's not in an office, it's not in front of a computer screen, which is why we love it, and it's probably why we do what we do. But one of the sort of added risks that adds to it is there's another more dynamic environment, another element of health and safety that we have to consider. So within the webinar, I'd love to just go through some real key sort of stalwarts of the health and safety and our obligations to Safe Work New South Wales and WorkSafe, depending on the states that we're in. But there's essentially there's four sort of elements to consider. There's the Act, and I'm going to try and make this as exciting as I can, because I know it's health and safety and it's not the most exciting thing in the world. But I think actually knowing the foundations of it means that we can actually really enact it as an organisation. And just avoid any situations that we don't want to get in, essentially. So the first is the Act. That's the core. That's built by the government. That's built by legislative bodies, authorities, regulators, to make sure that the things that we're doing are protecting our staff. The second element to that is obviously then the regulation. So that's what do we put in place, what are the procedures, what do we have to cover. There's then the codes of practice. That's how do we operate as a business. And then obviously the final element to that is the regulating bodies. So basically the rules that we've got, the reasons why we've got them, the rules that we have as a business, and then who's the authority to that. So WorkSafe, Safe Work, things like this. A lot of times, I think, I am going to go through this very quickly, but I think what I'd love to do is kind of focus in on because we are an outdoors environment, it is a bit more high risk. There's a lot of ambiguity sometimes in terms of where our health and safety finishes and where it starts and kind of where it goes through. So the first side of it is always to consider whether someone it's called a PCBU. You might hear health and safety officers mentioning it. It's basically someone that's conducting business or undertaking. So I've got a few points here. Obviously, it's a person who employs one or more other persons, an employer, company franchisee, contractors, or a business owner. The right side of that slide is obviously on officers. That's generally for quite larger companies that have investors, that have directors, that would need a little bit more structure in terms of health and safety. But what we generally focus on is a smaller business of about 0 to 50 staff, whereby the owner really has to take responsibility of the health and safety for everyone. And that can be quite a daunting task. So these are kind of the four main points in terms of what you're supposed to be doing: ensuring that it's safe, providing the information, the instruction, monitoring the health. Those are things that I have no doubt you guys as organizations will be doing. Making sure people are operating safely. Just even today, earlier, Laura, you were talking about some of the equipment that we're using and making sure that we're operating safely. This isn't really a concern for us as an organization, because we do believe, on the whole, some organizations not so much, but on the whole, companies care about their employees and they want to make sure that they're operating safely. And where we tend to fall down as organizations, or where we tend to fall down, is actually where we review that, or where we document that, how we show it, and that can be certainly the challenge. So I'm just going to skip over a few slides there in terms of, again, these are the obligations that I was talking about. Us as organizations, we have to make sure that we're following safe design and procurement processes. We have to train our workers, of course. We have to consult with them. We have to supervise them. We have to make sure they're doing the right things. And these are all sort of common sense things I find within health and safety. That's why I try and make this health and safety as exciting as possible. But a lot of it is, of course, if I don't train this person to go and do that dangerous activity, the outcome is probably not going to be aligned with what I want to have as an outcome as an organization, in terms of a sort of an efficient sort of delivery of service, let's say a safe delivery of service as well, something that our visitors, that our people that come and use our services will be happy with. We all do that through inductions, of course, assessments, our SOPs, JSAs, risk assessments. And a lot of those things are the things where we find that actually people will, I guess, maybe miss that stage out, or kind of miss that part of the health and safety process out. So they'll put, I went one slide too far then, sorry. So they'll put the things in place, but then from an inspection point of view, or an accreditation, or a regulating body, once they actually look into how we're documenting that and how we're making sure that they know about that, that's where we fall down as an organization often. Some obviously companies do it very, very well, but it's a case of where do we document those things and what can we pull up. It's a bit doom and gloom. Let's take an accident, for example. Let's say there was an accident with one of the staff members. At that point, you've given them the training, you've verbally told them to do things safely, you've trained them on obviously everything that they need to do. But that was all verbal. We've not got any evidence of that. At that accident point, that's exactly what the regulating authorities, like with the inspections and things like that, that's what they will be looking at. What can we pull up as a business to show that we actually, even though while we weren't there, we were really trying to make sure that accident didn't happen. That generally looks like a risk assessment, like a training that we've got on file with a valid expiry, like an e-learning they've done for health and safety. Those are the types of things that we can pull up as an organization to make sure that actually, from the staff are operating safely, but on the other side of it, that we've got the evidence and we can show that. And it just means that once you've got the evidence, that's kind of the means to an end. If you've got the evidence, it means you've done what you were supposed to do, and it's just that final tick in the box, and will allow us to operate safely and stay open, and obviously not have any closures and stalls and things like that, because that's the employment relations. That's something I focus on quite a bit. I'm focusing on health and safety. Employment relations is the side that might cost money or might add time or help or sort of make retention difficult. Health and safety is what's going to stall operations, and that at the end of the day is not what we want. We want to stay completely away from that, and that's, I know I'm going down that doom and gloom role again, but we help with obviously documenting that, making sure we've got the right things in place, and that's exactly it. I think to keep it really, really simple, you just have to think, if you weren't there and someone did something that they shouldn't have done, how can we show as an organization that that was what they shouldn't have done? How can we show that that was something that they shouldn't have been doing, or that they didn't do that in the right way? Generally, that's with documented training, which you guys will do anyway. But does anyone have any questions? Because I'm going to move on to the mental health side, which is something that's really, really being pushed at the moment by the government and New South Wales. Does anyone have any questions around the documentation process or the how to show what you're doing in an efficient way? David, was that I think I saw your hand pop up then.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing in our industry is, let's say, very poor images on social media and other things of many of us in the industry. doing things we're not supposed to be doing. So I assume that sort of thing now starts to impact into what we're talking about as well, where once upon a time it would have been a bit of paper, but now the assessors or the whoever can check us out.
They will absolutely do that if they see something that's untoward or something that shouldn't be happening, and rightly so in a way, I guess, in terms of we do want to make sure that we're cultivating a safe working system. But they will, like, you're absolutely right, David, in terms of I've had clients come on board that have had that whereby they've put things on social media. It's a group of tradies. They're doing something funny on a construction site, but it's not very safe. Someone picks that up, and then suddenly they've got an audit on their hands, and they've got sort of the regulated bodies looking around. Now, the thing that saves them at that point is that they've got a social media policy, that they've got the training documentation all in place, that they've got a supervisor, maybe a toolbox talk that they did, and they've got that saved somewhere. And at that point, they can actually pull up and say, although that is happening at our site, and it's just happened, and thanks for letting us know, we have put these things in place, and these things have been accepted by the employees to show that actually they shouldn't be doing that. And that's what saves us as an employer at that point. If we can prove that. If it's just verbal and we say, oh, they know they shouldn't have been doing that, they're being silly, work safe and safe work, they're just going to say, show me. How do we know that's the case? And that's exactly what we help with at the end of the day. So great point, David. Absolutely. And it's at that point where, because it is so visible these days, isn't it? The workplace is so visible. Even if we're out in the outdoors, there's social media, pictures, live videos, all of that stuff that's great for marketing. But then also it can have a bit of an adverse effect if it's not conducted in a safe way. And that's where your documentation will save you, David, for sure. Your risk assessments, your training, things that you've got saved on file with expiry dates, etc. A brilliant point. Anyone else got any questions around that? I mean, that was a great addition to the conversation, I think, David.
Yeah, Reece, just on that as well, and I've seen this with another organisation. It was actually the front cover of their quarterly magazine, and it's like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? And so it's that also that unconscious incompetence where they just don't know what they don't know. So they could have their risk documentation in place, and they think they might be covering it, but this was like, oh my goodness, I can see 5 different things in this one picture that shouldn't be happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's just a case that we bring organizations on like this all the time. So it's amazing. Thank you, David Gregory. So we've got another David here thanks for the question.
We're everywhere. David's are everywhere.
Yeah. Well, my middle name's David as well. So yeah, we are everywhere.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to change my name.
Yeah, Laurie. Yeah, that's it. So you're absolutely right. Often we'll bring organizations come on board, and let's say if someone comes on board with Bright HR as a client, the first thing we do is an initial assessment in terms of conversation. Tell me about your business. Tell me what you're doing. What are the operations? What's the offering to the client? What are the staff doing? Is it a distance? Are they traveling? All of those things that we need to consider, because you're absolutely right, David. Obviously, ignorance is not an excuse, but it's definitely rife within all industries, really, in terms of. And I understand it in a way. Maybe not a company with a magazine, because that's probably quite a large organization. I think they should definitely be careful with things like that. But if we're a smaller business and we open up because we're passionate about something, because we want to go and explore the outdoors, we want to have employees doing that as well. Your first consideration isn't, right, let me write my risk assessments. It's not, right, okay, let me do my e-learning. It's going to be, right, how do we get this going? How do we get this moving? And how do we get that process forward? So you're absolutely right, David. The first thing that we will do is always have an assessment in terms of what's happening at the moment to make sure that actually those operations are safe, and then we document that properly. Because if you're documenting bad behaviours, it's not worth the paper that's written on at the end of the day. So yeah, a great point. Excellent. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate kind of the feedback and the getting involved there. As you can imagine, with health and safety, I do a few webinars and presentations, and everyone just kind of sits there and watches. So I'm really, really happy that everyone's kind of getting involved. Just checking my time.
This is our business.
Yeah, excellent. No, it's awesome. It is awesome. So the other side, and I did want to touch on this just because I know obviously it is a more physical environment. It's probably going to be a bit more risky than, let's say, sat in an office in front of a computer screen and things like that. But one that I think we often forget and that gets left behind is the mental health side of things. And you just mentioned your ambassador that's come on board with a really inspiring story, and kind of, I'm sure climbing for her was obviously a physical thing, but definitely going to be a mental side of things for her in terms of achieving something, getting better, that improvement. And mental health, I think, is one that we can forget sometimes as an organization, in terms of that it's important, that we need to show that we're reviewing it, that we're checking it. And it's getting more and more sort of scrutinized, I guess is the best word, by Safe Work, by WorkSafe, by the authorities. Just because it's getting more and more popular, I suppose, there's a lot more visibility around it. Now, what we don't want it to be is something we feel like we have to do, because that will have an effect on retention. Staff won't really believe it, they won't really feel valued, and things like that. So what I have come up with is a few stats that actually, as a business, and there's one after this that I really make reference to, because from a business perspective, it actually pays to invest in kind of mental health support, mental health training, and things like that. Now, I've got a few stats here. Obviously, there's 5 million Australians currently living with a mental or behavioural condition, which is no mean feat. That's a large portion of our society, and I'm sure we're all affected, or know someone, or have met someone before that has had challenges, or maybe even ourselves have challenges. And I'm definitely not afraid to say that, because it's something we need to talk about within the workplace and within, obviously, society in general. 15% of Australians reported experiencing high or very high levels of psychological distress at or because of work. So it's a good chunk. I mean, in terms of productivity, from a business point of view, it will have an effect. But even obviously for our humanity, our society, we want to move forward in that sense. And there's a few other stats on there that I hope you had a quick look at, but the one I want to go to is within the next side, is just on the return on investment. Now, I'm a huge advocate for mental health and safety, for mental health in general. I think the importance on it should be that we want to look after each other. But from a business perspective, I know we have to look at the bottom line and kind of the cost, the budget, and things like that. Now, this is out from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. That's a bit of a mouthful. And essentially, the average return on investment for every $1 spent on effective workplace mental health strategies is $2.30. That will come back with reduced sick leave. That will come back with obviously taking less absence, less lateness. That will come back with obviously more efficiency, happier staff, much better retention because they're happy and they will refer other staff members, so we can actually bring people in. And I think it's a strategy that we probably don't think of anyway in terms of recruitment. But when we think of recruitment, we think of, okay, there's Seek, there's an ad, we'll put it out, put the salary out, we'll put some great benefits to do with the job. And often what we miss off that is actually a great mental health strategy within the business. Because obviously we're outdoorsy people, we can get stressed, we use it as a de-stress for sure. That is something that I would definitely recommend putting on job ads and offer letters and things like that, because it does bring staff in, it does give you that extra element over maybe another business or organization. And within that, and this is the real key element to it, obviously you've got to then document it, you've got to keep up with it, you've got to review it, you've got to make sure you're on top of it, or else it's not obviously not worth sort of the paper that it's written on. So from a mental health perspective, obviously I'm sure you've all seen this before or something like this before. It's obviously our wheel of risk assessing. So we assess the risk, we control them, and then we review them. So we look at, okay, what's our workload? And I've got a few lists of things in here that will pose mental hazards. So high job demands, low job control, poor visibility, workplace relations, all of those things we know. We know that to be true. And it's a case of where can we review this? Because not only will we get those benefits as a business, sometimes we do need to protect ourselves as well with documentation, with a monthly mental health check that we review and that we give a sort of conclusion to. Just keeping an eye on my time so I don't go too much over. And I think in terms of the way we do that, there's three elements to it. There's obviously trying to eliminate it. So that could be a case of someone's got a really high job demand. So we bring someone else on to split that role with. Or we give them a bit more time off, and those things we need to document, because a lot of the times we'll be doing that and we'll say, oh yeah, I've dealt with John, I gave John a couple of extra days off just to go and be with his family, and it was really great, came back refreshed, ready to go, but we didn't document that anywhere, which obviously then from a work perspective, if then a few years down the line John has another stress related injury, let's say, I guess, then we've got a bit of a history and we can track it, which is the key. So from a mental health perspective, I'm not going to go through these because I am kind of onto I think we're getting into a bit of Q&A and I want to keep an eye on my time. But I think that's what I'd like to mention. Obviously, the health and safety, often it's knowing what is correct, and that can be a challenge because industry specific. That's where our team of consultants can make sure that we're doing the right things. And then reviewing, documenting and keeping a kind of a paper trail of that, which ideally is on a digital platform because it can be a lot easier. You can obviously put review dates and expiry dates, and the system, our system or a system, doesn't have to be ours, will let you know when things are happening. It will let you know when to look at things, have that review, have that history. And just it's a little bit about our software, obviously, that covers that. I mean, we've got two elements that we really help with. I'm going to open up some questions just in a sec. But we've got two elements. We've got an advice team, which is consultants, that's health and safety, that's employment relations. So that's a case of if maybe we don't have a budget for a super duper HR person, $100,000 a year, we could be a really cost effective alternative to make sure that you do know who to call when, let's say, the award changes, or there's some allowance additions to your contracts that you're not sure how to deal with, or maybe we don't have any contracts yet and we want to implement them because they're a legal requirement. Those are the types of things that we help every single day. And it's exactly the same with the health and safety. That almost mirrors our HR and employment law team. That would be within the health and safety in terms of, let's have a talk. What do you need to do? What have you got in place at the moment? And then, yeah, use our templates, use our documentation to bolster that and get that right where it needs to be. And then the system you can put review dates and things like that, so it'll let you know when you need to look at things. Because often with health and safety, the reason we're not doing it is just because it kind of goes by the by. We've got a great health and safety book that we bought 2 years ago, but we've not actually pulled it out we haven't blown the dust off it for about 2 years, and it's not really doing what we need it to be doing. The benefit of our system, and I don't want to get too salesy because there are other systems. So the benefit of a system, I guess, is that it will remind you to do things. And with ours, it's got a phone app, for example. So when you're out and about, you can take pictures of hazards, you can change your risk assessments and all that sort of stuff. So you don't have to be in front of a computer to be doing that. And there's a SWIMS navigator on it, which is really good. So cool. I mean, I think we are ready for some just a bit of a Q&A, some questions. I think I've got, what's that, 9 minutes of Q&A. Laurie, I try and take that.
You're fine, absolutely. And we've got to 11, so yeah, no problem.
Okay, excellent. I mean, in terms of that presentation, I could probably stop sharing that now anyway, because I'd like to see everyone's faces. But has anyone got any kind of questions on that reviewing? Has anyone got maybe some ideas in terms of how they're doing at the moment and would like a bit of feedback on that, or even just have ideas of their own? That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I've got a few things, and I certainly, I think we support each other. As you can probably see, we're all become Davids on the screen. But it's
how do I do that?
It's the sort of the connections that we've been making in these sorts of forums have really supported the industry through what has been obviously incredibly challenging times, not only just for our industry but everyone. But what I kept thinking through your presentation is most of what I'm seeing as the peak body, and I'm hearing, because I certainly have to have the broad shoulders to support the business, is the business owners are the ones that are really struggling from a mental health sense. When they're the ones that are putting the processes and the systems in place to care for their team, what's your advice on how they've got to consider their own mental health space in this?
Yeah, it's a brilliant point. It's a fantastic point. I think the first thing is we need to delegate. We need to learn how to share. We do need to learn how to do that, and it's a really hard thing to do, certainly with mental health, because business owners, very hard people, have dealt with lots of difficult situations and have had to kind of overcome challenges on a day-to-day basis, and very much not used to sharing. So if we do have, let's say, a mental health policy that's within the staff, if we're not doing, and I've encountered this often, I say, okay, let's say Shelley owns that business, and I say, okay, how often do you take that mental health break that you tell them to do and that you review? And they'll start laughing or they'll start giggling and say, not as much. And at that point, we're saying, look, you've got to lead from the front with this. It's difficult. If you're not doing that, then even just from a kind of regulations point of view, it's probably not looking like you're actually implementing it.
Yeah.
But the positive side of that is obviously then you yourself as a business owner are able to get a bit of relief from that. And definitely, even from having our support in place, just from a selfish thought in terms of an organization like ours, what it is it's a, obviously with the support, we make sure that we get the compliance up, but what it is peace of mind that whatever's happening at the moment, let's say a business owner is doing a disciplinary because one of the staff members has done something really silly. We take you step by step through that process, get you ready for the meeting. We make sure everything that we're doing is following our fair work obligations. And it takes that weight off your shoulders in terms of, am I doing the right thing here? Is this the right thing? And that actually does really help. And I get some great feedback from clients saying, thank you for helping us with that issue. It was very sensitive and it was causing a lot of stress. So we do take that off their shoulders. But number one, you've definitely got to be leading from the front with these things. And like I say, it's really hard because you do have to kind of show a little bit of vulnerability within the organization.
So my other point was around, obviously, as an industry, we do risk management every day, and we have to, for the sake of, keeping everyone that participates safe. And there's systems and processes, and we realise the importance of things like the AAAS, because if something did go wrong, a coroner would need those processes and systems and how we've met things like the standards. What's the worst case scenario in not looking at what you're talking to us today? Like, I think when it comes to risk management and incidents, we are staring down the barrel of, we've got to respond potentially to a coroner. In HR world and WHS and what's the worst case scenario if people don't listen to what you've said today?
Yeah, I guess there's two elements to it, and this is the real doom and gloom side. And I always try and stay very far away from this and say, look, once we get the support in place, we just won't get anywhere near this. Yeah, absolutely. David's popped that in there in terms of staff suicide, death of an employee. That's always the worst case scenario, that we lose someone, that we lose someone during business operations. And of course, from a business owner perspective, nothing is worse than obviously someone losing their life. That is that's the ultimate sort of payment for something like this, and we'd never want to get into a situation with that. But what they will look at then is, right, duty of care. Why did this happen? Did they have the right training? Was it seen before? Could it be picked up? And there are people have been to prison. There is it's a bit of a horrible story. I don't really want to bring it up, but there was a story of it was a construction site. There was a large hill and a pit at the bottom with some metal spikes coming out of it. They knew about it. They were told about it. The boss, the owner, didn't do anything about it. An employee did actually slide down there. They didn't die, but they got impaled on one of those spikes, and obviously that was a huge injury. And the owner actually got a prison sentence for that. Went to prison, and then the company gets closed down. So worst case scenario is someone loses their life. That is always the worst case scenario. But as business owners as well, it's closure, massive fines, prison if it is negligence. The HR side is a little less. You're not really going to get into prison sentences. That's more fines, closures. That's a lot of financial penalties. The general sort of penalty for a sort of, let's say you've got casuals on, but you've not given them a casual contract, and there's nothing about their casual loading. That's a legal obligation. If we miss that and don't kind of improve it, we can get fined like $6,600 it is. You just say about 6.5. So with the employment relations, it's generally financial, and also the effect on the business reputation. If you lose someone, then you've got to go employ. That's spend another $25,000 on employment, things like that. It's the average kind of cost in terms of hours on training. But with health and safety, it really is very. If someone dies, then you can go to prison for negligence. It's almost like a parent-child relationship at that point from a health and safety perspective. So we try and stay very, very far away from that, and just make sure that as organizations we are operating safely, and we're managing risk, because sometimes you just can't. We're within the industry, certainly in the outdoors, you can't always do things super safe. But if we've got the training, we've got the right documentation, we review it regularly, then generally we're in a much safer position than we were if we didn't have it.
Yeah, brilliant, Reece. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's just important for businesses to really understand, why they do these sorts of things. We tend to get into the pattern of doing stuff without realizing, what could be there. And I think you made a point before around audits, and that's certainly real. If there is an incident or something, you could be audited on your processes and systems. So having documentation is certainly one step, but actually enforcing that documentation to your processes alleviates any potential for that to occur.
Yeah, and I think that often the daunting thing can be why a lot of business owners, I would say, that I've taken on as clients lately, is that they're not too sure what they're supposed to have and what they're not supposed to have. How far do I have to go? And then that kind of cloud in their mind just stops them from doing it altogether. Yeah. Or stops them from kind of exploring it and just saying, right, we've got that health and safety book. And that's what we do. We pull the business apart. We say, right, tell me everything about the business, what you're doing. We're not here to audit you or try and make sure, find holes in your policy. It's just where can we fill those gaps? And then we make sure that you've got those things and you have those things on an ongoing basis. That's the real key to it. It's just not shying away from it, because it can be a bit of a scary world sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone's got any questions, please jump in, but I can go on forever because this is an area of mine that I know some of our guys struggle in. So I've got questions always burning, but anyone want to jump in? Because I would like you guys to get a chance to. No, all good. Okay. Reece, just from look, I'm a big believer in, when it comes to things like small business, medium-sized business, large business, whatever the business is or the activity, that there's roles for specialists in this. And, we would outsource our accounting to a bookkeeper because of their knowledge of this. And I think one area that, and the reason why I reached out to you guys, is I'm seeing that people are probably doing the HR without really understanding it, and the opportunity that this could be outsourced, that people don't realize it could be outsourced. Not saying everyone can afford it and go through that, but, what sort of price, can you put on the assistance and guidance that someone like yourself provides an organization?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the times what organizations do well is actually the functional things, in terms of what they need. If they have a contract, they'll make sure that they've got the hours of work, and maybe some of their job roles and things like that, but they won't have some of those other legal requirements that, just out of not knowing, could get them in a bit of a tricky situation. So in terms of price, I mean, it depends on how you feel about it. If it can give you peace of mind, and it can make sure that you're not worrying about things, and you know that your business is going to stay open and you're not going to have any fines, I think there's so much to that in terms of value that you can get. So like I say, peace of mind, number one. Number two, just making sure everything's compliant so we can stay open. Those costs can't be counted. In terms of our support, and actually the real-time cost, depending on your level of the size of organization, generally what you'd be looking about is around maybe $20 per employee. A little bit lower, a little bit higher, depending on the level of support that you wanted. So, I mean, for a 5-staff organization, you wouldn't be looking at any more than $100 a month. And what that gives you is your consultants, your support, your documentation, and just the knowledge then that your business is running safely. And I think a lot of people, to be fair, Bright HR, we did start in the UK. That's where I started. That's why I'm over here now. But we always focus on smaller businesses, and we know that there's not a huge budget for tens and thousands of dollars a month and per year to be able to pay for things like this. And we really focus our costings on that smaller organization. So it is accessible.
Yeah.
You can have that support. You'll pay more for that for an accountant or your payroll or whatever it is those things are doing. And it means that you can make sure your compliance is there, so you stay open, you don't spend money. And then, of course, you have that peace of mind. You know that what you're doing is correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, Laura. I mean, in terms of putting a cost on the support, I could tell you what we charge for it, but what value it actually gives to clients. I do genuinely believe that. I know I'm part of the organization, so I would always be saying this. But we do have a 5-star rating on FIFO. We've had that for the last 4 years in a row because we invest heavily into the team of people here. So to give you an idea, if you rang up, if you were using our HR software and you wanted to upload a document and you're having a little trouble with that, you would ring into the team, and our team, I keep pointing over because they're all sat over there, but our service team would be there to be able to help you on the phone and talk you through it. It's not kind of bots in America, and that's what really sets us apart. So from a costings perspective, Priceless is probably the really cheesy word, but yeah, we've got a cost of hours, but it means that you're compliant. It means you know what you're doing. You know you're safe.
Right.
And I think
So it's like you're tapping into resources that are already being built and tried and tested and checked by lawyers. Which,
yeah, exactly. Our whole support system is built around the Fair Work obligation. So if someone came in and saw, let's say you'd used our contracts and they had an audit and saw our contracts, they'd say, right, I can see that's been created with our Fair Work obligation in mind. And it just puts it to bed. It means there's no ambiguity or fear of the unknown.
I'm really pleased you mentioned before the casual agreement, because we did bring that up when it came into the requirement for businesses to do it. And it's probably a really good reminder for those that are here and also those watching online around that agreement and how important that casual agreement is. I hope everyone's been feeding that out to their casuals and connecting with them. But do you have any, I suppose, recommendations or guidance in that area for them, just to reiterate the importance of that?
Yeah, definitely with the casuals. I generally this is a bit of free advice I'd always give on sort of a first call, but with your casuals, make sure that their award or their pay rate is on something in writing. It doesn't have to be a contract. It could be a letter. It could be a document, whatever it is. We need to make sure that they have their award or their rate in written, and then the fact that they get 25% loading because they're a casual staff member. Those two elements are a legal requirement that they have and they accept and they understand. And then the other side is that we give out the casual work information statement. The casual work information statement is another legal requirement. That's available on the Fair Work website. So two very easy fixes, but things that if any other issues pop up, this is what will be scrutinized. So yeah, from a casual perspective, I think people always see him once a week and he does an hour, so he just comes and we pay him and that's fine. That just doesn't fly anymore. The other side with casuals as well is the casual conversion laws. So if you have over 15 staff and your staff are doing regular and systematic hours, you actually have to offer permanent part-time and you have to show that you offered it. Or else, if we don't, 6 months later, this casual comes back, they've got someone that they know in HR, they've said, right, I should have offered to me, we didn't, we might be due for back payments and underpayments and things like that. So just to prove that
down, Reece, that's an interesting point. So they have to be offered that opportunity, but they can
have to be offered it.
Turn it down.
They can turn it. It was a perfect point. I was about to say a lot of casuals prefer to just be casuals so they can accept and decline shifts. So they can get that higher rate. They're more than happy with that. But it's just a case of as an organisation could offer it. The other side is the change to subcontractors, which has just happened. Now there was quite a few factors that Fair Work would look into to sort of identify whether someone is an employee or a subcontractor. That's kind of changed now. What it means is you have to have a subcontractor agreement in place. They can wear things like your uniforms and they can obviously have specific hours, which before would have kind of really made them an employee and eligible for annual leave and things like that. Now they can do that, but we have to have a really solid contractor agreement in place, regardless of their conditions. So that is now a legal requirement. It's kind of switched. So you can have a bit more flexibility with your subcontractors, but you have to have an agreement in place, and lots of people don't.
Absolutely.
So that's another update that's one to think about.
And I think that that whole case law that I mentioned before, the Jamzek case, was a real turning point, I think, for that contract in place. So a lot of organizations that have been familiar with contracting might already have contracts in place and they might be fine. But what this has uncovered is if the contracts don't have certain elements in it, that it can come back to bite that organization later down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, doom and gloom, those are the things we just find out what we've got and make sure we don't get anywhere near that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Reece, thank you so much for being here. I think it's been incredibly useful, hopefully for everyone here and everyone watching. Again, just a quick call if anyone wants any other questions of Reece, or we'll open it up to other questions around the table and what's going on in the industry. But thank you, Reece. Hopefully we can see you come back again another time and keep engaging with the industry and help us spread the word about what we do.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, and kind of maybe a bit of a focus on the HR side of things next time would be no problems. And just, Laurie, I guess I'll email you. I'm going to open up to questions, but I'll email you my details, and that could be passed around. And if anyone wants a more sort of one-on-one or a look at the software or anything like that, just let me know.
Amazing. That's great.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
That's from Deviline. Thanks, Ellen. Awesome. Great, guys. Well, I might stop the recording now, and we